I would like to read my essay. It's called Fluoride, Good for Business, but Is It Good for Us? There's no quick way to explain what the father of modern mass persuasion, Edward Bernays, the manufacturer of the first atomic bomb under the Manhattan Project, and the most powerful magnates of U.S. industry all had to do with the quality of our drinking water today. These seemingly unrelated topics hold the key to understanding why America fell victim to a deceptive campaign which succeeded in introducing an extremely potent neurotoxin into the drinking water under the guise of saving the children's teeth. This particular chemical incontrovertibly forged this nation and gave it an unparalleled industrial military advantage. But it is important to remember that behind every successful public relations campaign, there is often another story, one that we were not meant to see. The name of the element in question is called fluorine, and it is referred to as fluoride whenever it is compounded along with other elements. In the past, it was typically derived from fluorspar, a naturally occurring mineral. Fluoride ushered America into the international arena as an industrial and military superpower due to its unique chemical properties. It drastically reduced the temperature at which molten metals such as steel, iron, lead, aluminum, copper, gold, silver, and nickel could be extracted from the superheated ore, thus greatly increasing all industrial output. Refrigerants, glass, aerosol propellants, insecticides, hydrofluoric acid, especially its use as a catalyst in oil refining, and the employment of fluoride fluxes among an estimated 150,000 welders were just some of the burgeoning uses for fluoride in the war effort, according to Dr. Paul A. Neal of the National Institute of Health, quoted in Bryson 81. Vice President C.O. Anderson of the nation's largest fluorspar producer, Ozark Mahoning, once conferred that fluoride was, quote, as vital to our national life as a spark plug to a motor car, quoted in Bryson 149. But perhaps the most distinctive and inexorable use of fluoride was for the manufacture of the first atomic bomb under a government project labeled Manhattan. Christopher Bryson, a former producer and correspondent for the British Broadcasting Corporation, wrote in his book, The Fluoride Deception, that due to a slow and extremely convoluted process, quote, hundreds of tons of fluoride and thousands of stages of progressive enrichment would be needed to produce enough uranium for a single atomic bomb. Page 47. Fluoride was truly indispensable for industry, but there was only one problem. It was extremely poisonous to all living organisms, and soon a hideous trend of damage began to emerge. Historically, the scientific community's position towards fluoride has always been cautious at best. A talented scientist and air pollution investigator, Philip Sadler, was not dismayed by the atrocious disfigurements that manifested themselves in factory workers who were exposed to fluoride at the beginning of the 20th century. So used to observing cases of chronic as well as accidental exposure to fluoride in workers, he sometimes joked, saying, quote, they did not have any tooth problem with the employees in the smelter, because when they went to work, they put their teeth in the locker. No tooth problem. But people outside the smelter did have mottling, quoted in Bryson 121. In Europe, scientists such as Dr. Kaj Elira Holm were also speaking out on behalf of individuals whose occupations frequently expose them to fluoride's crippling effects. In 1937, Dr. Roholm wrote in his book, Fluorine Intoxication, that the bones of workers at the Danish factory, which extracted fluoride from a mineral called cryolite, quote, sucked up fluoride like sponges, wreaking havoc on their skeletons, immobilizing spinal columns, malforming knees and hips, and even thickening some men's skulls, quoted in Bryson 31 through 32. Dr. Paul Connett and his colleagues, Dr. James Beck and Dr. H. Spedding Micklem, who co-authored a book called The case against fluoride, how hazardous waste ended up in our drinking water, and the bad science and powerful politics that keep it there. They bring forth evidence that wherever fluoride was occurring naturally in the groundwater, it typically resulted in dental fluorosis, a condition characterized by mottling and discoloration of tooth enamel, and identified in studies as early as 1902, page 69. To highlight the dangers of fluoride to the public's health, Danish researcher Dr. Kaj Elira Holm wrote, quote, "Our present knowledge most decidedly indicates that fluorine is not necessary to the quality of teeth, but that on the contrary, the enamel organ is electively sensitive to the deleterious effects of fluorine," page 315. The first comprehensive study on skeletal fluorosis emerged in India in 1937, Connett 69, whereas dental fluorosis was but an early indicator of systemic fluoride poisoning. Skeletal fluorosis was described as, quote, "a more severe form of poisoning," Bryson 33. As a result of the mounting evidence that pointed to fluoride as the culprit behind the damaging effects to the living tissues, the U.S. Public Health Service, PHS, took active measures to remove fluorides from water supplies whenever possible from 1931 till 1939, Bryson 44. PHS issued statements such as, quote, "The presence of fluorides in excess of 1 part per million shall constitute rejection of the water supply," quoted in Sullivan 520. The Journal of the American Medical Association cautioned that fluorides are, quote, "general protoplasmic poisons, changing the permeability of the cell membrane by inhibiting certain enzyme systems," Connett 73. A similar statement of opposition to fluoridation was published in the Journal of the American Dental Association in 1944. It stated, "Sodium fluoride is a highly toxic substance. The use of drinking water containing as little as 1.2 to 3.0 parts per million of fluoride will cause such developmental disturbances in bones as osteosclerosis, abnormal hardening of bone or bone marrow, spondylosis, degenerative osteoarthritis of the joints, and osteopetrosis, disease marked by abnormally dense bone, as well as goiter, and we cannot run the risk of producing such serious systemic disturbances in applying what is at present a doubtful procedure intended to prevent development of dental disfigurements among children," quoted in Kruger, quoted in Love. Up to this point in history, an act of adding a known toxin such as fluoride to water or food would have been considered counterintuitive and blatantly criminal. However, the political process of distribution of goods and services among the individuals and organizations in society has always been a constant battle among various interests with radically opposing goals. Thus, while scientific revelation was carrying the nation in one direction, the self-strengthening character of the military-industrial complex was infiltrating the established scientific institutions with its own agenda. The growing military force and its direct dependence upon industry to provide the equipment for war fueled, quote, "entire new enterprises, such as fluorocarbon plastics, aerosols, refrigerants, uranium enrichment, rocket fuels, and agricultural chemicals, all requiring that employees breathe and absorb fluoride." Bryson 106. Okay, I'll do one more part here.